Welcome, everyone. I'm David J. Story, author of the Omega book series and the host of The Secret World of Human Trafficking. Thank you for joining me today. Today's episode focuses on one question that law enforcement officers, financial investigators, prosecutors, and intelligence analysts ask every day. Where is the money going? Traffickers lie, victims disappear, phones are destroyed, documents are burned, but money almost always leaves a trail. If you'd like additional resources, articles, or information about my books, visit davidjstory.com. So let's begin. This is episode 2, Following the Money, How Criminal Networks Profit. Why human trafficking exists. People often ask, why is human trafficking growing? The answer is painfully simple, because it makes money. A drug dealer sells cocaine once. After it's sold, it's gone. A trafficker, however, can exploit the same victim again and again and again. That victim becomes a recurring source of income. To a trafficker, that's a business model, an evil one, but a business model nonetheless. Every criminal organization asks the same question. Legitimate businesses ask, how do we reduce cost? How do we increase profits? And how do we avoid detection? How do we expand? Those questions drive criminal innovation, which is why trafficking networks constantly change their tactics. Think like a CEO. Let's do something uncomfortable. For a few minutes, I want you to think like a criminal CEO. Not because we admire them, because understanding your enemy is the first step towards defeating them. Imagine you control a trafficking network. You need recruiters, transportation, safe house, false identification, drivers, people to collect money, people to advertise victims, people to intimidate victims, people to laundry profits. What you've just created isn't chaos, it's an organization chart. Many trafficking organizations operate with remarkable structure. Everyone has a role, everyone has responsibilities, and everyone gets paid. Some members may never ever meet the victims. Their only job is moving money. Others never touch the money. Their only responsibility is recruitment. That's why dismantling one trafficker doesn't always dismantle the organization. The system continues operating unless investigators identify the entire network. The recruitment investment, the businesses invest in marketing. Traffickers invest in recruitment. They spend time identifying vulnerable people. Someone who's homeless, someone running away from home, someone escaping abuse, someone desperate for employment, and someone looking for love. Sometimes recruitment costs almost nothing. A few messages online, a fake job offer, a promise of modeling work, an offer to pay for transportation, a romantic relationship. The return of that investment can be enormous. That's why prevention is so important. Stopping recruitment prevents the crime before it begins. How profits are generated. One of the biggest misconceptions is that traffickers make money in only one way. The reality is far more complex. A trafficking network may profit from commercial sexual exploitation, forced labor, domestic servitude, forced criminal activities, debt bondage, forced begging, fraud committed by victims under coercion, identity theft, financial scams, benefit fraud, document fraud, money laundering. One victim can generate income from multiple criminal activities simultaneously. That's why investigators often uncover additional crimes once they begin examining the trafficking case. Human trafficking rarely exists in isolation. It often overlaps with organized fraud, drug trafficking, illegal immigration schemes, cybercrimes, document forgery, and financial crimes. The deeper investigators dig, the larger the criminal enterprise often becomes. Where does the money go? Most people picture traffickers stuffing cash into mattresses. Sometimes that happens, but organized crime is far more sophisticated. Profits may be used to purchase luxury vehicles, real estate, jewelry, businesses, firearms, drugs, cryptocurrency, foreign investments, shell companies. Some traffickers live lavish lifestyles. Others intentionally appear poor. Why? Because expensive lifestyles attract attention. Experienced criminals know that looking ordinary can be one of the best disguises. Financial investors don't just look for expensive homes. They look for unexplained wealth, patterns, transactions, relationships, businesses that doesn't make sense. Bank accounts connected to multiple suspects, money moving through family members. The money always tells a story. The challenge is learning how to read it. One of the most valuable lessons ever taught to financial investors can be summed up in 3 words. Follow the money. It's simple advice, but it's incredibly powerful. Criminals are skilled in hiding people. They move victims from city to city. They use false names, burner phones, fake identifications, stolen identities. They destroy records, delete messages, erase surveillance footage when they can, but eventually they want to enjoy the profits. Money has to move. Someone has to collect it, someone has to spend it, and someone has to hide it. And every one of those steps creates opportunities for investigators. A bank deposit, a wire transfer, a credit card purchase, a cryptocurrency exchange, a payment app, a prepaid debit card, a money transfer service, an expensive vehicle title in someone else's name. These transactions may seem insignificant by themselves, but when investigators put hundreds or even thousands of these pieces together, a picture becomes to emerge. Think of it as assembling a giant jigsaw puzzle. One piece doesn't tell you much, but eventually the image becomes clear. That's how many trafficking organizations are dismantled, not because someone witnessed the crime, but because investigators followed the financial trail, how criminals hide their profits. If trafficking generates enormous profits, why don't investigators simply seize the money? Because organized criminals spend a great deal of time trying to hide it. Some spread money across multiple bank accounts. Others use relatives or trusted associates to hold assets in their name. Some invest in cash-intensive businesses where illegal income can be mixed in with legitimate revenue. Others purchase vehicles, jewelry, collectibles, or real estate. Some move funds across international borders. Others use digital assets or cryptocurrency in an attempt to complicate investigations. The goal is always the same: break the trail, create confusion, make investigators give up. But experienced financial investigators understand that hiding money often creates new evidence. Every transfer leaves a record. Every business leaves paperwork. Every property purchase creates documentation. Every tax filing or failure to file one can become evidence. The more complicated criminals make their finances, the more opportunities they create for investigators to uncover the truth. The investigators who follow the money. When people think of trafficking investigators, they often picture undercover officers conducting rescues. Those officers play a critical role, but there is another group of investigators working quietly behind the scenes. Financial investigators, forensic accountants, intelligence analysts, IRS criminal investigation agents, Homeland Security investigators, FBI financial specialists, state and local financial crime units. Their offices may not look exciting. You won't often find dramatic television scenes. Instead, you'll find computers, spreadsheets, bank accounts, bank records, wire transfer logs, tax documents, property records, business registrations, hours spent reviewing financial transactions. It may not seem glamorous, but these investigators often deliver the evidence that allows prosecutors to dismantle entire criminal enterprises. One suspicious payment may lead to a bank account. That bank account leads to another business. That business leads to another suspect. That suspect leads to another victim. One financial clue can uncover an entire network, taking away the profits. Imagine spending years building a criminal enterprise. Then one day, law enforcement doesn't just arrest you, they seize your vehicles, freeze your bank accounts, take your house, confiscate your business, recover your cash, forfeit your investments. Suddenly, the organization begins collapsing. That's why asset forfeiture has become such an important tool against organized crime. The goal isn't simply punishment, it's disruption. Without money, criminal organizations struggle to recruit. They struggle to advertise. They struggle to pay members. They struggle to expand. Money is the fuel. Take away the fuel, and eventually the engine stops running. Of course, investigators must follow legal procedures and obtain appropriate court authorization before property can be permanently forfeited. These legal safeguards are important to protect the rights of innocent people while targeting criminal proceeds. Why this matters to everyone. Some people think trafficking is someone else's problem, something that happens somewhere else. But organized crime doesn't exist in isolation. The profits from trafficking may be used to finance other crimes: drug trafficking, weapons trafficking, fraud, corruption, money laundering, identity theft, cyber crimes. Every dollar earned through exploitation strengthens criminal organizations. Every dollar removed from those organizations weakens them. That's why financial investigations matter. They're not just about money. They're about dismantling the infrastructure that allows exploitation to continue. When investigators seize assets, they aren't just taking property. They're removing the tools criminals use to victimize others. Every purchase has a story. Have you ever looked at a luxury car and wondered who owns it? Or driven past a large home and imagined what the owner does for a living? I know I have. Most people earn what they have through honest work, but sometimes the story behind wealth is much darker. Financial investigators are trained to ask questions that most of us never think about. How does someone with no documented income own multiple expensive vehicles? How does a small business with almost no customers deposit hundreds of thousands of dollars every year? Why is cash being withdrawn from several different ATMs across multiple cities on the same day? Why are dozens of bank accounts connected to the same phone number? And why does one apartment have utility bills in 5 different names? Individually, these questions may not seem important. Together, they can reveal a financial blueprint of a criminal organization. Investigators don't begin with accusations. They begin with questions. Then they follow the evidence wherever it leads. That's how successful investigations are built, not on assumptions, but on facts. The victims are not the criminals. One of the greatest injustices in human trafficking is that victims are sometimes mistaken for offenders. A victim may appear to be committing crimes. They may be using false identification, transporting illegal drugs, working under fraudulent documents, participating in financial fraud, even recruiting others. To someone looking at the surface, it may appear they're willing participants. But investigators have learned to ask another question. Who is really in control? Was this person acting freely, or were they threatened, manipulated, beaten, blackmailed? Were they told their families would be harmed if they refused? Were they trapped by debt, addiction, fear, or psychological coercion? Trauma changes behavior. Fear changes decision making. That's why today's investigators receive increasing training in trauma-informed interviews. The goal isn't simply to identify criminals, it's to recognize victims who may not yet realize they have legal protection or pathway to safety. What you can do. At this point, you may be thinking, David, I'm not a police officer. I'm not an FBI agent. I'm not a financial investigator. And you're right. Neither am I. But every successful investigation begins with someone noticing something unusual. A hotel employee noticing a young person who never speaks for themselves. A bank employee identifies suspicious financial activities. A truck stop worker recognizes someone showing signs of coercion. A teacher notices a student suddenly wearing expensive items that they cannot explain. A healthcare professional observes injuries and controlling behavior. A neighbor sees people constantly coming and going from a residence at unusual hours. None of these observations prove trafficking, but each one of them may provide investigators with the information they need to begin asking the right questions. Never underestimate the value of paying attention. Awareness saves lives. Let's talk about myths versus fact. Myth. Human trafficking only generates money through commercial sexual exploitation. Fact. Traffickers profit through many forms of exploitation, including forced labor, domestic servitude, forced criminal activities, debt bondage, and other corrosive schemes. Myth. Criminals keep all their money in cash. Fact. Modern trafficking networks may use banks, businesses, digital payment services, money transfers, cryptocurrency, and other financial systems in attempt to conceal or move illicit proceeds. Myth. Financial investigators aren't important. Fact. Following the money is often one of the most effective ways to identify leaders, map criminal networks, and build financial cases that can dismantle entire organizations. Final thought. If you've listened to today's episode from beginning to end, I hope one thing has become clear. Human trafficking is not simply an act of violence. It's a business, a criminal business built on exploitation. Every trafficker asks one question: how much money can I make? Our job as investigators, educators, advocates, and informed citizens is to make that business model fail. Supporting survivors, reporting suspicious activity, helping law enforcement, and refusing to look away or too visible, its profitability begins to disappear. And when criminal organizations lose their profits, they lose their power. Thank you for joining me for another episode of The Secret World of Human Trafficking. I hope today's discussion has given you a deeper understanding of how financial investigations play a critical role in combating one of the world's fastest growing criminal enterprises. If you found this episode valuable, please share it with your friends, family, co-workers, and the community. Every person who learns about trafficking becomes another set of eyes and ears helping protect the vulnerable. For additional articles, educational resources, interviews, and information about the Omega book series, visit davidjstory.com. Next time, we'll step into another critical area of this fight as we explore the digital marketplace, encrypted apps, cryptocurrency, online recruitment. We'll examine how technology has transformed trafficking, how criminals misuse digital tools, and how investigators are adapting to meet those challenges. Until then, learn, keep asking questions, and keep shining the light onto the darkness. I'm David J. Story, and thank you for listening to The Secret World of Human Trafficking. And always watch your six and others too.